We're proud to present author J. Morvay's Bible Black. Terrifying visions of madness, death, love, and God. Walk on the wild side, as the short stories and animations will take you on a descent into the madness of human folly and tragedy. Stories that will take you from the horrors of Nazi Germany to the city's back alley abortionist, where a young girl's mangled fetus seeks its own redemption from a filthy dumpster, to heaven, where God himself prays for the strength to end his own suffering. I ask the viewer to suspend your own reality and enter into the shadowy world of these people's lives. Because in the end, when you take away the flesh, there is only the soul. Bible Black. Watch it, if you dare.
Come take my pain. No end in sight. Do as I dare. Dare me to light.
In heaven that day, God, usually good-tempered, was irritable and ornery. He'd seen horrific shit in his endless lifetime. Today, for some unexplainable reason, he'd had enough. He'd put up with eons of their petty and more serious crap. It just wasn't the way he'd planned the whole big deal. Oh well, you win some, you lose some. This loss was a housebreaker. He put the holy gun into his mouth, prayed to himself for an answer. Why? Why had his creations gone and screwed everything up? Not getting an answer, he pulled the trigger.
In the pages between the twilight of darkness and the black of night, she was plunged into the ghoul-pooled bowels of her deepest and darkest fears. She recited her mantra.
Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. Demons and angels stand near my bed, one at foot and one at head.
Destiny's a funny thing. Where are you, lobster girl? You told me you'd be here upon my return from Tijuana. You asked me to prove my love. The surgery was a success. My hands transformed into claws. Now I'm just like you. Where are you, lobster girl? Where the hell are you? When I first saw her on stage at the Dungeon Club, men were hypnotized. I'm Jake, I muttered. Her beauty was astonishing. Her aura, all-encompassing. Your claws are beautiful. I'm not like the rest of these bums. I could save you. Falling in love is serious business, she whispered. You know nothing of my heart. To love me, you must taste my life, consume my pain. Only then can we have a wedding of our souls. Then she told me about her childhood. Lobster Girl's mother was displayed at the sideshow.
Step right up, honorable gentlemen, and feast your weary eyes on this miracle of womanhood. Half woman, half scorpion. Can you pass this by? $100, lads. Step up and feel the power of the Scorpion Lady.
Several men returned after dark for a taste. Her face blood splattered from their attack. Her mother's screams woke little Lobster Girl, who ran to the trailer to help. She rushed to her mother's side, but was grabbed. Lobster Girl lunged at her attacker with her claws, slicing his face and chest clear to his sinewy tendons. The cops came, took his mangled body away. They struggled to get the handcuffs around the child's blood-slippery claws. She tried to stroke her mother's beaten, catatonic face, but the cops carted Lobster Girl away.
The conductor waves his glowing lantern. German guards line up reluctant Jewish travelers. Arms up, the guards scream and shove. They pile hundreds into compartments. Takes creativity. They are proud soldiers. Arms up, arms up. Shots ring out, bodies fall. Mothers struggle, raising their weary children's arms. Faster, faster. The guards push and club and bayonet. The train is off to Auschwitz, always on schedule.
The house screamed quietly now, holding secrets firmly within its bloodthirsty walls. Children's footsteps echoed in the emptiness. Only shadows lived here now. Girls playing with dolls, boys sliding down the staircase, the banister. The paint and varnish calcified with disease. Weeks ago, the voices shrieked and twisted in her head. She wanted to be a good parent. She wanted a better life for her 6 children. She wanted them to grow up to be good Christians. She wanted to take her medication, but stopped at the urging of her husband. One sunny afternoon, the demons forced themselves inside her soul. She was powerless against their bloodlust commands. She held her children's heads down in the bathtub, in the scalding water. They thrashed and pulled at her dress, at her eyes and hair. The devil was inside of them. She had to stamp it out. She saw 6 bubbles rise. 666. 666. She was saving them from Satan, sending them to God instead. 6 bubbles rising to heaven, popping into 3-word prayers. Please, Mommy, no.
For killing the man, the judge sentenced her to 10 years in a juvenile facility. The prison guards boasted about their 2 famous inmates, a 12-year-old murderer with hands like claws, and a 15-year-old killer named Snow the Albino. The albino had been abandoned at birth, his pink eyes and white skin considered a curse even in this day and age. At age 8, he was rescued from a foster home so full of abuse, poverty, and squalor, he was feral in nature. It didn't seem to shock the social workers when he was found in an animal-like state, tearing at his mangled foster parents' innards. The guards feared Snow, who was left alone to rule the prison. Lobster Girl told me, "One night I heard my cell door open. It was Snow, his pink eyes glowing. 'Don't scream or I'll cut your throat with your own claws.' She screamed, but no one came to help. He thrust into her, tearing into her virgin flesh, collapsing in a violent climax. Lobster Girl raised her claws, and during Snow's moment of ecstasy, her pincers popped his pink eyes clear out of their sockets. He collapsed, thrashing at his face in a thick red pool of blood. For blinding Snow, she received 12 months in solitary confinement. For rape, Snow received 3 years in solitary. His hatred for her festered. Snow's baby grew inside her. She screamed for the doctor as she went into labor, but he had gone home. A putrid, metallic-smelling liquid dripped down her legs onto the filthy, moldy concrete. She pushed and strained, screaming from the pain. In the darkness of her cell, she saw her baby's pink eyes. His tiny claws reached for her, and she felt a love she had never felt before. The nurse came the following morning and said, "Don't we all belong to God? We will see he gets a Christian home." She removed the suckling child, his cries echoing through the shadowy stones. Lobster Girl screamed, "Give me back my baby! I swear, my light, I will find you when I get out of here." An eternity passed, and Lobster Girl and Snow were released. Broken and battered, they began their quests. Lobster Girl intent on finding her son, Snow intent on killing them both. Lobster Girl's son was raised by monks. He healed wounded birds and animals, and he was sought by believers everywhere for his gift. I was there when Snow went to the weekly mass, where he'd been told a strange albino boy with small claws for hands would lay them on the weak, the lost, the suffering, the sick. The long line moved slowly. A church worker guided the strange blind man up to the altar. Snow looked giddy as he clearly intended to murder the boy. The child's claw tenderly touched the scar tissue where Snow's eyes used to be, and Snow was taken aback as he felt the connection, repairing the damage. At first a blur, and then Snow's new pink eyes glowed. "Praise Jesus! He's cured!" a monk yelled. Snow pulled the knife out of his jacket. He would eat his heart. The blade flickered with blue light as he drew it up to plunge into the chest of the young miracle healer. But Lobster Girl appeared. She stood between them like an Amazon warrior, ready to do battle. "Snow, you'll never harm my son!" She slashed the air, her claws snapping. "I'll carve you into a million pieces, you freak!"
I was in the basement looking for the cat. Instead, I found a pile of porn magazines under my uncle's workbench. Glossy magazines showing jumbles of bodies, twisted flesh, drooling open mouths. Most 10-year-olds would be shocked. I was thrilled, relieved. Thank God. Maybe now Uncle will leave me alone.
The pain of all this loneliness was overwhelming. She yearned for the intruder to reappear and open the window again on that fateful night, on what was the worst night of her life. Or was it, really? The cops had told her that it was violent and traumatic, and she should get counseling. Time had healed the bruises, but the emptiness, oh, the emptiness, it made life meaningless. Meaningless. Only the rape had meaning. True, he had been rough, but violent? She couldn't be sure anymore if he had been violent. She thought that his roughness had to do with rejection he had suffered in his life. Rejection so severe he knew no other way to approach a woman. Since the rape, she understood rejection. The police, even though they'd said she'd been a victim, asked her why she wore tight pants, and they told her that her long, flowing hair stimulated men. They were saying she had enticed the rapist, maybe even asked to be raped.
Shouldn't she be able to dress any way she wanted without inviting assault? Her friends were kind at first, but they rejected her too, as if being associated with her would label them as prey for rapists. Her employer asked her to take a leave of absence, even though she could still handle her work. He said that in public relations, an employee had to be upbeat, chatty. She wasn't smiling enough. He said he'd signed for her to get unemployment. Her family were born-again Christians and wanted her to repent for the sin she had brought against herself, her family, the church, and God. They insisted she tell her sins at the altar and have a public cleansing in the small indoor pool where they held baptisms. Her boyfriend left her because she was stained in the eyes of God, and he could only marry a virgin. She truly understood rejection, and she wanted to get her rapist to talk to her, to tell her the rejection he had suffered that led him to want her to feel what he felt. He was the only person in her life that cared enough to want her to feel what he felt in an intimate, soulful way. Her soulmate had come and gone in that liminal place between night and day, and like her, he existed in twilight. They needed each other to be born, to enter the light of day. Yes, of course, when it first happened, she felt elation at his escape. Now she felt he was the only one who had ever known her deeply and completely. She knew he would be back. Night after night, she left her window open and lay praying for his return. She remembered how he took her body, mastered it, completed himself inside her. She heard his sacred words when he offered her the essence of his body. His metallic voice was like velvet wrapped in steel. She said his words over and over in her mind, like a mantra. When you take away the flesh, there is only the soul. She closed her eyes and prayed to God for his return so she could reclaim her soul. The carnage began. Slicing, ripping, tearing. A whirlwind of gore, a mass of bloody flesh. Lobster Girl and Snow tangled, a fight to the death, their spilled blood soaking the holy statues. She slammed her claws into Snow's chest. She tore out his heart and held the beating, pulsing mess up to his face. Snow's pink eyes flickered. He fell to his knees, all the while stabbing Lobster Girl. Lobster Girl was barely alive when she whispered,
"Run! My son! My light!"
Light screamed at the sight of his mother's butchered body. He couldn't untangle them, so he cradled them both, his touch healing. Snow's heart beat again, outside his body, and Lobster Girl's gaping wounds closed up. They were both alive, Snow only for a moment. Light dragged his mother out of the church. Her eyes opened. She was with her young Light, cradled in his arms. She smiled. They held claws.
Everything is going to be okay.
I was on the next flight to Tijuana to have the surgery. I would be her savior. Oh God, my claws itched, throbbed with pain. The oxy, the Percocet, nothing masked the agony. I waited at the airport for hours. She never showed. I know she's probably with the kid, but she promised me a wedding of our souls. I went to the dungeon. The manager said,
She quit dancing. She's got a special needs kid now.
$100 bought me the name of her motel. Half a dozen guys milled around that hotel, their hands covered with bandages. There she was, breathtaking. I backed into a doorway and heard another guy say, "Okay, baby, I'll go to Mexico, have the operation. Our claws will make us one." She walked down the street with this bum, hand and claw. I ripped the dirty bandages off, felt the smooth, knife-like edges of my new claws. How could she? I licked the scabs off my new claws and follow the happy couple. Oh, the things I'll do for love. Destiny's a funny thing. It took every ounce of soul conviction to still presume they were God's chosen people. If their God were omnipotent, why had he not stopped the Holocaust? If God were unable to prevent this slaughter, he was impotent and useless. If God could have stopped it and chose not to, he was a monster. I often wish I could be one with these people of God. They still believe.
When all usefulness is over, when one is assured of an unavoidable and imminent death, it is the simplest of human rights to choose a quick and easy death in place of a slow and horrible one.
Deep down I'm afraid of you. I dare not speak your name. You've kept little girls awake, little boys crying in vain. But you can't hurt me if my dreams are shattered. You can't hurt me when shadows are there. You can't hurt me. All the notes in my hand, please let me sleep. Go away.